Good afternoon. My name is Marcelo Ficelli. I work for Bradesco as a data engineer manager, and I work in the data intelligence department. Today, I will talk about our journey migrating our Teradata architecture from our on-premise environment to the cloud. Let's start talking about our agenda. First of all, I will talk about some of our big numbers to explain a little bit what are the Bradesco. So I will talk about the beginning when we started using Teradata architecture. It was some time ago, and then we will talk about our migration plan, why we, and the reasons why we decided to migrate our infrastructure to the cloud. And last, I will talk about the future vision that we have in Bradesco for our architecture. Talking about our numbers, Bradesco is one of the biggest banks at Latin America and in Brazil. We are in the financial service industry for 82 years, and we have 3.5K branches in Brazil. We have some branches abroad, so we have branches in Miami, in Argentina, Luxembourg, and other countries. In 2025, we have a labor force of 84K employees. And today, 99% of the transactions that we execute in our infrastructure, not exactly at the analytical workload, but transactions made by the bank are started in a digital channel. And we can conclude that 98% of these transactions are started from our mobile app or from our internet bank, from the internet site. With a portfolio of 75 million customers, we have 38 million customers that are exclusive accounts. They are natural persons or companies. The majority of them are natural persons, okay? And a big part of our analytical workload is executed at Teradata platform. We have some departments, some business units that use data from Teradata platform, like, for example, credit risk, controller, and HOT, but our biggest user, I can say, that is the CRM department. And when we look for these numbers, when we have 75 million customers and 38 million accounts, we can conclude that our CRM has a big job to convert some of that customers in accounts. That is what we are really interested in. Many things, many actions that are made by our CRM department are based on data that are prepared at Teradata architecture. The base defined for campaigns are prepared in Teradata architecture. Segmentation of customers is made in Teradata architecture. We use this segmentation to send personalized offers to our customers, and we are always concerned to not send repeatedly offers to our customers and to send offers that really make sense for our customer. For example, if the customer contact us to ask for a loan, and the next contact we use it to offer another loan from the same objective, but with a better a better situation, a better tax or something like that. Data that is prepared in Teradata platform is used also to make communications with our customers. In 2025, we made 7.7 billion of communications with customers, and these communications are made in many kinds of medias. We used to send communications by email, by push messages, by SMS, and always worried that these communications make sense for the customer that is receiving. This environment is used also to process customer behavior models, and all engagement activities with customers are based in data prepared in this architecture. Here, I will talk about the beginning when we started using Teradata architecture. How you can see, we have two architectures here, but we started just with one of them. We started with the first one, that was the architecture from Bradesco Bank. All the transactional data was stored in our mainframe, and we used to transfer data to Teradata platform, and we stored the data in the logical model, and we built our data marts in this platform. Sometime later, Bradesco Bank bought a bank that was called EB Bank, and this bank was specialized in process credit cards and debit cards transactions. And the EB Bank has another infrastructure very similar with the structure that we had in Bradesco. So by the moment that Bradesco made this acquisition, we could make this infrastructure unified. We need to keep this infrastructure separated. And it was we need to face with some challenges when we had this infrastructure separated, because many things that we need to do twice, and some things we need to have two, like DBA teams, for example. We had one DBA team to take care of the cards environment, and other DBA teams to take care from the bank environment. When we need to install a patch, we need to install in both environments. When we need to upgrade a version, we need to upgrade in both environments. But I think that despite of all these challenges, the biggest one was the data integration. Why? Because at Bank, we had a lot of data that could be very interesting to people that work at card side, and vice versa. At card sides, we have many data that Bradesco keeps in their environment that could be interesting for the cards people that work in the other environment. But because physical separation, we could integrate this data. So sometime later, when we needed to make an upgrade, we considered to unify this architecture. So all the database from Bradesco Cards and Bradesco Bank were unified in the same architecture. Doing this, we solved a lot of that issues that I told in the previous slide, and we could enrich customer data, even from cards and for bank. And something that we take care about was to observe the LGPD laws that are the Brazilian version of GDPR laws, and we just use data that were authorized by the customers. Sorry. And one thing that I forgot to say is that many of the issues that I said in the previous slide was solved, but we yet have the issue when we need to migrate the environment, because our environment is a very big environment. I think today we have about 350 terabytes. When we need to change our equipment, we have a long period of unavailability. And this is one thing that we need to solve also. And to do this, we start the planning migration from this environment to the cloud. But looking for the scenario when we have a very complex environment with many connectivity and with connections with the mainframe that was our biggest supplier of data, considering that we had one mainframe from Bradesco Bank and other from Bradesco cards, do a big bang migration should be a very risk operation. So we decided that it should be a phased migration, which, if possible, we should start a first phase migration, a smaller one, and then do the complete migration. And together with the professional services team from Teradata, we planned the migration considering these 6 steps. The first step that we considered was to upgrade the version from our on-premise environment. And why? Because the version that we had at on-premise was different from the version that we will use at the cloud. And we would like to eliminate any kind of issues that we could have after migration. We didn't want to have any doubt if the issue was caused by the migration or caused the different version that we have. So one thing that we decided was that the migration would be phased. And the step 2 until the step 6, it was very clear for us that we need to execute these steps twice. One for the first migration and the second for the complementary migration. At the step 2, we migrate the development environment only for databases that were from the Bradesco's card. After migration, the first environment, the developers continue working. The only change that they need to do was to change the connection string for their applications, and the deploy that they do for the other the other environments continue to work very well. In the step 3, we made the same migration for the quality assurance environment, and everything continue working at the same way. For the production, we divided in 3 steps. The first step was the step that we called seed migration. The seed migration, what was? It was not the official migration. We migrate only the databases from Bradesco cards, but they are not running the production workloads yet. We are with the environments in parallel. At this time, from the step 4, we have databases from Bradesco cards at the cloud, and the same database at the on-prem environments, and the process, the official process, the process from production, were running exactly the same at the on-prem environment. And what we did at this time, we started testing all the kinds of connections. So now we are at the step 5. Test all the connectivity, test all the applications, and comparing performance from the process that were executed at cloud and the process that were executed at on-premise. It was totally satisfactory, So after one time, executing this process in parallel, and we confirmed that the results were exactly the same, so we decided to do the final migration that we call cutover migration. At this time, from the step 6, all the workloads from Bradesco cards starts running only at the cloud environment. We keep both environments working, but at the on-premise environment, only the process from Bradesco Bank, and at the cloud, the process from Bradesco cards. When we decided to do this approach of migration, we decided because, like I show you at the beginning, the environments are totally separated. So we thought that we could do this approach very simply because the data has no dependency. But when we start the planning, we found out that it was not sure. We have now users from Bradesco cards that made some use of data from bank, and some users from bank that made use from data from cards. Then it's an issue that we will need to solve. We will need to give a technical solution for this, and we will talk about this in the next slides. So just to remember the considerations for migration, a phased approach was recommended. We need to make many tests of connectivity. We would start by cards because the database are smaller. We thought that they were totally separate and independent, but we conclude that they are not. And with the first migration, we intend to learn many lessons to use at the final migration from the database from Bradesco Bank. Looking for this scenario when we have a very complex environment and we have different data sources, different technologies, and data stored in different technologies, it's very common in this scenario. We face with situations where our business units start building their all data, their all process, and storing data in some local servers. And is this that at this time that we can see some data silos in our environment. And this is one thing that we would like to avoid. And the choice of the technology that will help us to keep both environments running in parallel should consider two main facts. The first one is to help us to keep these environments running parallel. And the second one is to be used in the future to avoid users building their data silos in their business units. So, talking with the professional services, we found a solution that was to use the QueryGrid solution from Teradata. With the QueryGrid solution, we configured a communication between on-premise and cloud environments where a user that is connected to the cloud environment can access a table that is stored at on-premise and vice versa. And this is made in a totally transparent way. The configuration happens only between the servers, but the applications don't need to be updated. It was one requirement also that we didn't like to do any kind of code changes. Why? Because it's a transitory environment. It's a transitory situation. In the future, in a very near future, we will have just only one environment at the cloud. So if we need to make code changes when we keep these environments in parallel, when we unify these environments at cloud, we will need to do all the changes that we made at the first. So using QueryGrid in this way, the configurations that we need to do, it's only between the communication. We don't need to do any kind of code change. So our architecture, our transitory architecture, become in this way. At the left side for you, we have the on-premise environment when the Teradata is running with database from Bradesco Bank. At the right side, we have the Microsoft Azure environment where the database from Bradesco cards are running, and the communication between these two environments made via QueryGrid that give us the transparency to execute our process. And just to give some technical detail about the solution, what we did, if at the Bradesco side, at the on-premise side, we had a database called DB1 and a table called DB customer, and a user that are connected to the cloud environment need to access this table, we created the same database at the cloud side with the same name, a view with the same name of the table, and this view points to the remote table at the on-premise side. And if we have the situation from the other side, we make exactly the same solution. So for the users, it's totally transparent because it used the same name from table that he used when it was connected to the on-premises environment. So today, we consider that our case was a successful case because from Bradesco cards, all our workload is running at the cloud. From Bradesco Bank, we made from that phase that I showed previously, we migrate from Bradesco Banks already the development environment, the quality assurance environment, and in September 12, we executed the first migration, the seed migration. Do you remember that one that I said that is not the official, but we migrate some data, and the users now are testing connectivity, are testing performance, and for the next month, in November 19, we will execute the final migration. That is that step we call cutover migration. And the technology that enable, I would like to talk all. The technology that enabled us to do this task was QueryGrid. Talking about benefits that we can observe was this kind of approach accelerated our modernization, accelerate our migration from workloads to cloud. We reduce costs because we don't need to egress data. The QueryGrid solves the queries in an intelligent way, and it's not necessary to move data from cloud to the on-premise environment. And this strategy is all a flexible strategy because we can connect the different service providers and use the best of each service provider. I say this because we now are using the QueryGrid to make the communication between on-premise and cloud, but in the future, we intend to use this communication to access data from other data sources that we have in other cloud providers. For example, this environment are in Microsoft Azure, but we can use the communication from QueryGrid to access data that can be stored at Google GCP. Our future vision is that it's a driver from our executives that all applications and all architectures that we are starting from new applications must start considering to use cloud architecture. And this means that we will not use on-premise architecture in any application. No, it's not this, but if you have a real reason to use on-premise architecture, it's okay. It can be developed using the on-premise. But if not, the application must be developed considering using cloud architecture. The department that I work, it's a department that provides data for all other departments at the organization. And what we observed today is that many requests, we received many requests, and we need to change the way we work. If we keep doing this, we will not be able to attend all the requests. So we start working in data democratization. In what way? We are training people from business areas, and these people, we have at the business area the same professional, the same role that we have in our department. The business areas will have data scientists and we will have data engineers that can develop their own workloads. And it's necessary, we intend that it's necessary if we really want to be a data-driven company. And one thing that we are working to is in developing a data platform. And in the future, we intend that users can use this data platform like a self-service platform. When they need to use some data, they go to this platform and choose the data that they want to use. But we know that it's very important to have a very strong data governance to help to support us in this journey. The data governance will need to establish rules to automate the way these rules are validated. And another thing that we are considering for the future, the use of AI is in our day-by-day activities, but like a provider, like a data provider, we know how important our department is, the activity of our department to allow people to use AI. And another thing that we know is that FinOps, it's a very important discipline today. When we were using on-premise environment, people don't worry about the data that they are processing, how many times the process is running. And with the tools that we have and at the on-premise environment, we are not able to do a refined distribution of this cost. Now with FinOps tools, this can be much more precisely, so we can charge exactly what our business units are using. And if you want to know a little more about FinOps, some presentation that will give you a detailed, a lot of details about the process of FinOps will be made tomorrow by our colleagues from Telefónica. So the tech vision, the final vision will be in this way. Our final architecture will stay in this way when all our databases will be stored and all process will be running at Microsoft Azure, and we will use QueryGrid at this scenario to integrate our Teradata with other data sources that we have in our organization. So, to conclude, our journey, the migration, it's not only changing tools. We need to use new tools, but we need always to change the way we do the things. For Bradesco, QueryGrid was enable us to migrate our workloads to the cloud. But we know that we need a data strategy and not only a tool. QueryGrid is a tool that can help us to implement the strategy, but it is not the strategy by itself, okay?